Commander Hyun stood at the viewport of Earth's first deep space diplomatic vessel, watching the massive alien station grow larger with each passing moment. Nexus Prime stretched across space like a city made of stars. Lights flickered across its surface, and ships of designs he had never imagined moved between its docking bays. His heart raced with excitement and fear. "It's beautiful," Dr. Minji whispered beside him. She held her datapad tight against her chest, her fingers trembling slightly. She had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life. Now that life was waiting for them just ahead. Captain Jinwoo checked the weapon systems one more time, even though they had all been powered down as requested. "I don't like going in there defenseless," he muttered. "We're not here to fight," Ambassador Yuna reminded him. She wore formal diplomatic robes and carried herself with grace, but Hyun could see the tension in her shoulders. "This is humanity's chance to join something greater than ourselves." Engineer Do-hyun said nothing. He simply watched the alien station and made notes on his pad. Hyun knew what he was doing. Do-hyun was cataloging every defensive system, every weapon platform, every possible threat. Old habits from Earth's wars died hard. The docking process was smooth. The aliens had sent clear instructions, and their technology guided the human ship into a berth with gentle precision. When the airlock opened, they stepped into a world beyond imagination. The station's interior defied description. Gravity seemed to work in multiple directions at once. Beings of incredible variety moved through corridors that twisted in ways that hurt to look at. Some aliens floated, others crawled on walls, and a few seemed to phase in and out of reality itself. A tall reptilian creature approached them. Its scales gleamed like polished jade, and its eyes held the cold calculation of a predator. "I am High Chancellor Vorn of the Vraxi Empire," it said in perfect English, though its mouth barely moved. "Follow." They were led to a vast council chamber. Thousands of beings filled the space, representing species from across the galaxy. The humans were brought to a platform in the center, surrounded on all sides by alien faces. Hyun felt like a specimen in a zoo. A crystalline being that seemed to be made of living light spoke first. "I am Council Speaker Thessa of the Kelith. Welcome, humans, to the Galactic Coalition. We have observed your species for some time." Ambassador Yuna stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for this opportunity. We come seeking peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding." Laughter erupted from the chamber. Not polite chuckles, but roaring, genuine amusement. Aliens of 100 shapes and sizes laughed at them. Hyun's face burned with shame and anger. Vorn raised a clawed hand and the laughter died down. "Cooperation? Understanding?" The alien's voice dripped with condescension. "Little Earth creatures, you have barely left your own star system. Your technology is primitive. Your understanding of physics is incomplete. Your social structures are chaotic and violent." "We have made great progress," Yuna protested. "In just 2 centuries, we have gone from ground-based travel to faster-than-light capability." This brought more laughter. Thessa's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been amusement. "You think 2 centuries is impressive? The Coalition has existed for 50,000 of your years. What you call progress, we call a child's first steps." Minji spoke up, her scientific curiosity overcoming her nervousness. "Then help us learn. Share your knowledge. We can contribute our own unique perspectives." Unique perspectives? Another alien, this one resembling a floating cluster of tentacles, made a sound like grinding metal. "What could you possibly offer us? Your biology is fragile. Your lifespans are brief. Your wars have nearly destroyed your own world multiple times." Hyun stepped forward, his military bearing straight and proud despite the humiliation. "We survived those wars. We learned from them. We grew stronger." Vorn leaned forward, his massive form looming over the humans. "You survived through luck and isolation. In the greater galaxy, you would be nothing but prey." The alien gestured dismissively. "The Coalition has a place for species like yours. You may join as a protectorate. We will guide you, protect you, and in return you will provide resources and labor." "You mean serve you?" Jinwoo said bluntly. We prefer to call it cooperation, Thessa replied, her light pulsing in what might have been a shrug. You would have no voting rights, of course. Important decisions must be left to mature species. But you would be safe under our protection. Ambassador Yuna's voice was steady, but Hyun could hear the anger beneath it. We did not travel across the stars to become anyone's servants. We request equal membership in the coalition. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Vorn spoke, his voice cold. Equal membership requires proof of capability, stability, and wisdom. You have demonstrated none of these. You have one cycle to accept our generous offer. If you refuse, you will return to your small corner of space and stay there. The galaxy has no need for another primitive species causing trouble. Is that a threat? Hyun demanded. It is reality, Thessa said. The coalition maintains order. Chaos is not permitted. If you attempt to expand beyond your current territory without our permission, you will be contained. The meeting ended shortly after. The humans were escorted back to their ship in silence. No one spoke until they were safely away from the station, heading back toward Earth. They treated us like children, Minji said quietly. No, worse than children, like insects. Do-Yun pulled up his notes. I counted 47 different weapon systems pointed at us the entire time. They didn't even try to hide them. They didn't need to, Jinwoo said bitterly. They wanted us to see how outmatched we are. Yuna sat in the ambassador's chair, her diplomatic mask finally cracking to show exhaustion and anger. I've spent my entire career preparing for first contact. Every scenario we imagined ended in cooperation, or at worst, cautious distance. I never imagined this level of contempt. Hyun stared at the stars streaming past. What do we tell Earth? Before anyone could answer, the ship's communication system chimed. A message was coming through on emergency channels. Hyun's blood went cold as he read it. 3 colony ships, launched before humanity had faster-than-light travel, had been destroyed by coalition border patrols. The ships had been moving at sublight speeds toward a distant star system, carrying 1,500 colonists in cryosleep. The aliens had detected them, deemed them unauthorized expansion, and eliminated them. 1,247 men, women, and children. Dead. Killed by the same species that had just lectured humanity about civilization and order. The message included a recording. Vorn's voice spoke calmly. This is what happens to those who do not respect coalition authority. Be grateful we have offered you a path to survival. Not all primitive species receive such generosity. Hyun read the message 3 times, making sure he understood every word. Then he looked at his crew. Minji had tears streaming down her face. Jinwoo's hands were clenched into fists. Yuna stared at nothing, her expression empty. Do-Yun was already working, his fingers flying across his console. What are you doing? Hyun asked. Beginning weapons development, Do-Yun replied without looking up. We're going to need them. Hyun turned back to the stars. Somewhere out there, the aliens were laughing at humanity's weakness. They thought Earth would accept servitude or hide in fear. They were wrong. The journey home took 3 weeks. By the time they reached Earth, Hyun had written his report. His recommendation was simple: prepare for war. Not immediately, but inevitably. The coalition had shown its true face. They would never accept humanity as equals. They would never stop pushing until Earth submitted or was destroyed. The question wasn't if they would fight. The question was when and how they could possibly win. Commander Hyun looked at the blue marble of Earth growing larger in the viewport. Humanity had been mocked, dismissed, and murdered. The galaxy thought they knew what humans were capable of. They had no idea what was coming. 6 months passed since the humiliation at Nexus Prime. Earth had changed in ways that scared and excited Hyun in equal measure. The Unity Council had debated for exactly 1 day before making their decision. They would not submit. They would not hide. They would prepare. General Hana stood before a holographic display showing Earth's new military buildup. The general was a veteran of the resource wars, the last major conflict humanity had fought among itself. She had hoped those days were behind them. Now she was preparing for something worse. "We're building in deep space," she explained to the assembled commanders. "Beyond Neptune in the Kuiper Belt. The Coalition scans won't detect activity that far out. We have 17 construction facilities working around the clock." Captain Jinwoo, promoted after his return from Nexus Prime, studied the numbers. "How are we paying for this?" "Every nation has contributed," Hana replied. "When faced with extinction, money becomes meaningless. We've united in a way we never did during our own wars." She smiled grimly. "I suppose we should thank the aliens for that." Dr. Minji was in a different part of the facility, working with a young scientist named Tai Hyung. The young man was barely 30, but his understanding of quantum physics exceeded anyone else on Earth. He stared at samples of alien technology they had secretly collected at Nexus Prime. "It doesn't make sense," Taehyung muttered, running another scan. "Their computing systems are incredibly advanced, but they're also rigid. Everything follows predetermined pathways. Is that bad?" Minji asked. "It's different." Taehyung pulled up neural scans of human brains. "Look at this. When we process quantum calculations, our neurons fire in chaotic patterns that somehow resolve into correct answers. It's messy and unpredictable, but it's fast. The aliens use pure logical progression. It's cleaner, but it takes longer." Minji leaned forward, her heart racing. "Are you saying humans can calculate faster than alien computers?" "In specific circumstances, yes," Taehyung grinned. "They dismissed us as primitive. They never bothered to study what makes us different. That's their mistake. The discovery changed everything. Within weeks, Do-hyun's weapons division had developed neural interface systems that allowed human pilots to calculate jump coordinates in real time. What took alien navigation computers hours, trained human minds could do in minutes. But development was one thing. Testing was another. And the Coalition wasn't giving them much time to prepare. Captain Jinwoo watched the sensor displays with growing anger. Coalition ships had entered the solar system, ignoring all of Earth's territorial claims. They moved slowly past Mars, scanning human colonies, treating them like interesting curiosities. "They're not even being subtle," Lieutenant Cheong said. She was young, only 25, but she was the best pilot Earth had produced in a generation. "They want us to see them. They want us to feel helpless." We're not helpless," Jinwoo replied. He activated a secure channel. "Commander Hyun, they're in position." Hyun, now fleet commander of Earth's secret military, studied the tactical display from his hidden command ship. The Coalition vessel was massive, dwarfing anything humanity had built. But it was alone, and its crew was careless. They had scanned the area and dismissed the scattered debris as space junk. They had no idea that debris included weapon platforms and the prototype battlecruiser Retribution. "Intelligence Officer Jimin, what are they saying?" Hyun asked. Jimin had spent months learning alien languages and intercepting Coalition communications. "They're laughing, sir. They're discussing how primitive our colonies look. One of them just wagered that humans won't last another decade before submitting." Hyun's jaw clenched. "Do they see the Retribution?" "No, sir. The stealth systems are working perfectly. They think we're still decades away from this level of technology." The Coalition ship moved closer to Titan, where 10,000 humans lived and worked in sealed habitats. Then, without warning, it fired. Not a killing shot, just a demonstration. An energy beam vaporized an unmanned cargo transport. The alien captain's voice came over open channels, translated by human computers. "This is a warning to Earth. You have not responded to our generous offer. This is what happens to those who waste Coalition time. Submit, or more than cargo will be destroyed." Hyun felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger anymore. Something worse. Calculation, purpose. He opened channels to every human military installation in the system. "All forces, this is Fleet Commander Hyun. Weapons free. Show them what we've learned." The Retribution decloaked 3,000 kilometers from the Coalition ship. The alien crew had exactly enough time to register its presence before humanity's most advanced warship opened fire. Plasma cannons, developed from stolen technology and improved by human engineering, tore through alien shields. Missile pods launched smart munitions that dodged defensive fire with impossible precision, guided by human pilots whose minds calculated trajectories faster than any computer. The battle lasted 7 seconds. The Coalition ship broke apart in silence, its crew never understanding what had killed them. Hyun broadcast on all Coalition frequencies. This is Commander Hyun of Earth Defense Forces. You came to our home. You threatened our people. You destroyed our ships and murdered our colonists. Consider this our response. If you want war, we'll give you war. If you want peace, you'll give us respect. The message sent, Hyun sat back in his command chair. Around him, the bridge crew was silent. They had just killed aliens for the first time. They had just started a war. Dr. Minji arrived at the command center hours later. She looked at the debris field on the monitors, all that remained of the coalition ship. Was this necessary? She asked Hyun quietly. They fired on Titan, he replied. They've killed over 1,000 of our people. Yes, it was necessary. Where does it end? Hyun had no answer for that. The coalition's response came 3 days later. Not a message, but an action. 17 species declared war on humanity simultaneously. Fleet movements were detected across coalition space. Thousands of warships representing the combined military might of civilizations that had conquered the stars for millennia. General Hana called an emergency meeting. The holographic display showed the incoming fleets. The numbers were overwhelming. They're coming from multiple vectors, she explained. They expect to reach Earth in 6 months. They're not sending scouts or negotiators. They're sending extinction. Ambassador Yuna looked pale. Can we stop them? No, Hana said bluntly. Not in open battle. We have maybe 300 ships. They're bringing thousands. Our technology is good, but we're still outnumbered 10 to 1. Then we evacuate, someone suggested. We run. To where? Jinwoo demanded. They control the galaxy. Where can we hide? Doyun spoke up from his corner. We don't fight them the way they expect. They've spent 50,000 years fighting wars according to rules and traditions. They have tactics that work, strategies that have succeeded for longer than human civilization has existed. And, Hana prompted, and we ignore all of it. Do-hyun pulled up tactical simulations. They'll expect us to defend Earth directly. Instead, we evacuate most civilians to hidden colonies and turn the solar system into a trap. They'll expect fleet engagements. We hit them with guerrilla tactics. They'll expect honor and rules of war. We give them chaos, Taehyung added his own thoughts. The neural interface technology works. We can build smaller, faster ships that jump unpredictably. We can't beat them in a straight fight, but we can make them bleed. Hyun listened to the plans forming. They were desperate, violent, and would cost millions of lives. They also might work. What about their worlds? Someone asked. If they can attack Earth, can we strike back at their homes? The room fell silent. That was a line humanity had never crossed. Targeting civilian populations was considered a war crime under human law. Sergeant Junho, leader of Earth's Special Operations Forces, spoke carefully. They killed our colonists, innocent people in cryosleep. If we're fighting for survival, we need to make them afraid. We need to make them understand that attacking Earth has consequences. You're talking about terror tactics, Minji said, horrified. I'm talking about survival, Junho replied. They started this war expecting an easy victory. We need to show them they're wrong. The debate raged for hours. In the end, General Hana made the decision. We defend Earth with everything we have. We strike military targets wherever we find them. And if they attack our civilians, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Then we ensure they understand the cost. The preparations intensified. Humanity had 6 months to prepare for a war against an enemy that had never lost. 6 months to train soldiers, build weapons, and evacuate billions of people. Hyun stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching Earth spin slowly below. Somewhere down there, his sister lived with her 2 children. Somewhere, families were preparing to leave their homes, perhaps forever. Somewhere, people were saying goodbye, knowing they might never see each other again. The galaxy thought humanity was primitive, weak, and easy to defeat. They were about to learn what humans became when they had nothing left to lose. The war was coming, and humanity would meet it with fire. The first year of the war was hell. Coalition fleets arrived with overwhelming force, and humanity's defenses crumbled like paper in a fire. Mars burned under orbital bombardment. The colonies on Europa went silent after a 2-day siege. Luna Base, humanity's oldest off-world settlement, fell when alien ground forces overwhelmed its defenders. Lieutenant Chae-young pulled her damaged fighter into the Retribution's hangar bay, the hull scorched and leaking atmosphere. She climbed out shaking, her flight suit covered in her own blood from a dozen small wounds. This was her 3rd sortie in 6 hours. She had seen 12 pilots die around her. How many left? she asked the deck chief. 7 fighters operational, he replied grimly. Out of 40 we started the day with. Chae-young wanted to scream, to cry, to give up. Instead, she saluted and headed to the medical bay. There would be another sortie in 4 hours. She needed to be ready. Commander Hyun watched casualty reports scroll across his screen. The numbers were incomprehensible. 2 billion humans dead in the first year. Entire colonies destroyed. Earth itself had been bombarded, and massive areas were now radioactive wastelands. The coalition was winning, just as everyone had known they would. But something strange was happening. The coalition was winning, but not as quickly as they expected. Captain Seokjin commanded the Shadow of Earth, humanity's first stealth carrier. His ship could hide in plain sight, using technology that bent light and radiation around its hull. While coalition fleets moved in predictable patterns, following tactics perfected over millennia, Seokjin struck from impossible angles. Target the command ship, he ordered his tactical officer. 3-second firing window, then we jump. The Shadow of Earth appeared behind a coalition fleet, fired a full spread of missiles at the flagship, and vanished before the aliens could even identify the threat. The missiles, guided by human pilots using neural interfaces, dodged every defensive measure and struck home. The flagship broke apart, and the entire alien fleet fell into chaos. Seokjin's ship reappeared 50,000 kilometers away, already lining up the next shot. Again, he ordered calmly. This was the new human strategy. They couldn't win fleet battles, so they didn't fight them. They hit and ran. They appeared, killed, and vanished. They were ghosts, striking from darkness and disappearing into nothing. General Hana watched the strategic map with grim satisfaction. They still have numerical superiority, but they're scared. Their admirals are requesting more escorts. They're spending resources protecting supply lines. We're making them bleed. It's not enough, Admiral Nari argued. The fleet commander was exhausted, having not slept properly in months. They can replace their losses. We can't. Every ship we lose, every pilot who dies, we're one step closer to extinction. Then we change the game again, Sergeant Junho said. He had just returned from a classified mission, and his uniform was stained with things Hana didn't want to identify. We take the war to their homes. Dr. Yoonji, the newest addition to the command staff, stepped forward. She was a psychologist who had been studying alien communications and behavior. The coalition species have never experienced war on their home planets. Not in thousands of years. Their military fights far from their worlds. Their civilians feel safe. We can change that. How? Hyun asked. Yoonji pulled up intercepts of alien civilian communications. They still mock us. Even while we're killing their fleets, they believe we're no real threat. High Chancellor Vorn broadcasts weekly messages assuring his people that humanity will be crushed soon. The Caliph hold festivals celebrating their inevitable victory. Let them celebrate, Junho said coldly. My teams are already in position. What happened next would be debated by historians and ethicists for generations. Junho's Ghost Corps, the most elite soldiers humanity had ever produced, infiltrated Vrax Prime. They didn't attack military targets. They didn't kill civilians. Instead, they destroyed the orbital platforms that regulated the planet's weather and protected it from solar radiation. Within days, storms of unprecedented power tore across Vrax Prime. Within weeks, the planet was becoming uninhabitable. Billions of Vraxi civilians had to be evacuated. Their perfect homeworld, unchanged for millennia, was dying. Hyun broadcast a message to High Chancellor Vorn. You came to Earth. You bombed our cities. You killed our people in their homes. Now you know how it feels. This is not military strategy. This is justice. Every species that attacks human civilians will see their own worlds suffer. We are not conquerors. We are not monsters. We are simply showing you what you showed us. The galaxy's reaction was immediate and shocked. 17 species demanded Vorn withdraw from the war. The coalition, for the first time in its history, fractured. Some species wanted to intensify attacks on humanity, to destroy Earth completely. Others wanted peace negotiations, terrified that their own worlds would be next. But the coalition leaders refused to negotiate. They were too proud, too convinced of their superiority. They couldn't admit that humans had hurt them. So the war continued and humanity refined its tactics. Dr. Taehyung's research teams developed weapons specifically designed to counter each alien species. For the Kelith, Crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies, they created sonic disruptors that shattered their bodies. For energy-based beings, they built containment fields that trapped them like insects in jars. For every species that fought them, humanity created a specific nightmare. Lieutenant Che-Yung discovered that human reflexes, honed by millions of years of predator-prey dynamics on Earth, gave them an edge in dogfighting. While alien pilots relied on computer-assisted targeting, she flew by instinct. She began teaching other pilots to ignore their instruments, to feel the battle instead of thinking through it. Your computer will tell you a maneuver is impossible, she explained to her students. Ignore it. Human bodies can handle stresses that our minds think will kill us. Your ship can do things the engineers never imagined. Stop thinking like a computer. Think like a predator. Her tactics worked. Human pilots started winning engagements against superior alien fighters, not because their ships were better, but because they flew them in ways that made no logical sense. They pulled maneuvers that should have killed them. They took risks that computers would never calculate as worth taking. And they survived, while alien pilots died confused about what had just happened. Captain Jinwoo led ground forces in boarding actions against coalition ships. The aliens expected disciplined military tactics. Instead, they faced soldiers who fought with improvised weapons, turned corridor battles into chaos, and refused to follow any predictable pattern. Human soldiers would retreat, then attack. They would surrender, then fight. They would negotiate, then detonate explosives. The aliens never knew what to expect. They're calling us savages, Jinwoo reported after one battle. They say we fight without honor. Good, Hyun replied. Let them be confused. Let them be afraid. Fear is a weapon too. Dr. Yoonji expanded her psychological warfare operations. Human ships broadcast recordings of alien screams from battle. They sent messages to civilian populations detailing exactly how their military forces had died. They released survivors who had seen humans in battle, knowing those survivors would spread terror more effectively than any propaganda. 3 years into the war, the strategic situation had changed dramatically. The coalition still had more ships, more resources, and more soldiers. But they were losing, not in numbers but in will. Their civilians demanded peace. Their military forces were exhausted and demoralized. Entire species were withdrawing from the coalition, afraid that continued war would doom their homeworlds. Commander Hyun, now Supreme Commander of all human forces, stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers showed coalition forces. Blue showed human positions. The map was covered in red, but the blue markers were positioned at every critical point. We can end this, Admiral Nari said. Push for Nexus Prime, take the station, and we break their command structure. It's a trap, Captain Seokjin warned. Every species that's still fighting will defend it. We'll lose half our fleet just getting there. Then we lose half our fleet, Hyun said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at him. This war ends at Nexus Prime. That's where they humiliated us. That's where we'll take our revenge. Gather every ship we have. Call in every favor. Every human who can fight will be part of this. Dr. Minji grabbed his arm. Hyun, you're talking about a suicide mission. No, he corrected her. I'm talking about a victory. They think we're animals fighting desperately. They think if they just hold out a little longer, we'll exhaust ourselves. He smiled, and there was nothing human in that smile anymore. They're wrong. We've been holding back. We've been testing them, learning them, breaking them slowly. Now we show them what humans can really do. Agent Minho, who had been deep undercover in Coalition intelligence for 3 years, sent a single encrypted message. I'm in position. When you're ready, I'll open the door. The order went out across human space. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon humanity had created was summoned. They were going to Nexus Prime. They were going to end this war. And the galaxy was about to learn that mocking humanity had been the last mistake the Coalition would ever make. Nexus Prime was defended by the combined fleets of 35 species. Thousands of ships surrounded the massive station, creating layers of defense that had never been breached in Coalition history. The alien commanders were confident. Even if the humans had learned to fight, even if they had become dangerous, they could not possibly break through this wall of force. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Supreme Commander Hyun studied the tactical display aboard the Retribution. His command ship was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built, but it was still just one ship against thousands. Around him, his fleet waited for orders. Every captain, every pilot, every soldier knew this was the moment that would decide everything. Agent Minho, are you ready? Hyun asked over a secure channel. Deep inside Nexus Prime, hidden among the alien intelligence staff, Minho heard the message. He had spent 3 years becoming invisible, learning their systems, gaining their trust. Now, with hands that didn't shake despite his fear, he activated the programs he had been secretly installing for months. I'm ready, he replied. On your mark, their defense grid will have a very bad day. Commander So-young commanded the first assault wave. Her battle group of 50 ships was meant to draw enemy fire, to make the aliens commit their reserves. It was a death sentence, and everyone knew it. But So-young had lost her family when Mars burned. She had nothing left but rage and duty. All ships follow my lead, she ordered. Make them remember us. The human fleet jumped, appearing at the edge of Nexus Prime's defense perimeter. Immediately, thousands of coalition weapons locked onto them. The aliens opened fire with everything they had, confident that this desperate human attack would be crushed in minutes. Then Minho activated his programs. Across Nexus Prime's defense grid, systems failed. Not all of them. That would have been too obvious during his preparations. Just enough. Shield generators flickered. Targeting computers recalibrated incorrectly. Communication channels crossed and jammed. For 30 seconds, the Coalition's perfect defense network fell into chaos. 30 seconds was all humanity needed. So-young's battle group charged through the gap, their shields absorbing hits that should have destroyed them. Behind them, the main human fleet jumped directly into the heart of the Coalition formation. It was a tactic that violated every rule of space warfare. It was insane. It worked. Lieutenant Chae-young led her fighter squadron through the confusion, her pilots following her into impossible maneuvers. They flew between capital ships using the aliens' own vessels as cover. When Coalition fighters tried to intercept them, they found themselves fighting opponents who refused to behave predictably. Chae-young barrel-rolled through weapons fire that should have vaporized her, trusting instinct over instruments, and killed 3 alien fighters in as many seconds. This is for Mars, she screamed over the combat channel, and her squadron echoed her rage. Vice Admiral Da-yoon coordinated the fleet-wide assault from her command ship. While Coalition forces tried to regroup, she directed human vessels to specific targets. Every strike was calculated to cause maximum disruption. Ammunition depots exploded. Command ships died first. Supply vessels were crippled, leaving fleet groups stranded without fuel or repairs. They're trying to establish a defensive formation, her tactical officer reported. Don't let them, Da-yoon ordered. Keep them off balance. Keep them afraid. Warrant Officer Taemin and his demolition team had already infiltrated Nexus Prime. While the battle raged outside, they moved through the station's maintenance corridors, following maps that Minho had provided. Their target was deep in the station's core, the Kelith crystal matrices that powered everything. There, Taemin whispered, pointing to a chamber filled with massive crystals that hummed with power. Plant the resonators on every matrix. His team worked quickly, attaching devices that Tae-hyung's research team had designed specifically for this moment. These weren't explosives. They were something worse. They would make the crystals sing at frequencies that would tear them apart from within. Charges set, Taemin reported. We're clear. Hyun received the confirmation. Everything was in position. Now came the hardest part. He opened a channel to every ship in both fleets, every station, every listening post in this sector of space. What he was about to do would be broadcast across the galaxy. High Chancellor Vorn, Council Speaker Thessa, I know you're watching this. I know you're still confident that your superior numbers will win. Let me show you something. He gave the order. Taemin activated the resonators. The Kelith crystals, the technological marvel that powered Nexus Prime, began to vibrate. The hum became a scream. Then they shattered, all at once, releasing energy that cascaded through the station's systems. Lights failed. Gravity stuttered. Life support shut down. The greatest station in the galaxy went dark. You mocked our technology, Hyun broadcast. You said we were primitive. But we studied you. We learned you, and we found your weaknesses. Your technology is powerful, but it's old. It follows rules. We don't. Coalition forces fell into disarray. Without Nexus Prime's command and control, individual fleet groups lost coordination. Some tried to retreat. Others attempted to fight on. None of it mattered. The human fleet moved through them like wolves through sheep. Captain Seokjin's Shadow of Earth appeared behind the Coalition flagship, Vorn's personal command ship. Seokjin armed every weapon his vessel carried and fired. The alien flagship's shields collapsed under the assault. Its hull breached in a dozen places. But Seokjin didn't destroy it. That wasn't the plan. "Boarding teams, go," he ordered. Captain Jinwoo led his soldiers onto the dying flagship. They met resistance, but alien troops couldn't match humans in close combat. Years of warfare had taught humans how to fight in corridors, in darkness, in chaos. The aliens had trained for thousands of years in simulators. Humans had learned by bleeding and dying and adapting. There was no comparison. Jinwoo found Vorn on the flagship's bridge, the reptilian High Chancellor trying desperately to coordinate his fleeing forces. Jinwoo's soldiers secured the bridge in seconds, stunning guards before they could react. "High Chancellor Vorn," Jinwoo said, his voice cold, "I'm placing you under arrest for war crimes against humanity." Vorn stared at him with reptilian eyes full of disbelief. "This is impossible. You cannot win. We are the Coalition. We have ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. "Not anymore," Jinwoo replied. "The battle for Nexus Prime lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Coalition fleet was destroyed or scattered. 23 species surrendered immediately. The others fled into deep space, abandoning their allies. The station itself was captured intact, its systems slowly being restored by human engineers." Supreme Commander Hyun walked through Nexus Prime's council chamber, the same place where he had been mocked 5 years earlier. Now it was filled with human soldiers and Coalition prisoners. He ordered Vorn and Thessa brought before him. The two alien leaders stood in chains. Thessa's crystalline body was cracked and dim. Vorn's scales had lost their luster. They looked small and defeated. Hyun activated the broadcasting system. Every world in the galaxy could see this moment. 5 years ago, I stood here as a representative of humanity, seeking peace. You laughed at us. You called us primitive. You offered us slavery and expected gratitude. When we refused, you killed our innocence. You destroyed our colonies. You bombed our homeworld." Hyun's voice was steady, but everyone listening could hear the anger beneath it. "You thought we would be easy to defeat. You thought your superior technology and numbers would crush us quickly. You were wrong. We survived. We adapted. We learned. And we won. Now you will face justice for your crimes." "Justice?" Vorn hissed. "You destroyed Vrax Prime. You killed billions of civilians. You are the war criminals." "We destroyed your weather control platforms," Hyun corrected. "We didn't kill anyone. We gave them time to evacuate. You didn't give that courtesy to our colonists in cryosleep, did you? You didn't warn the cities you bombed on Earth. You wanted genocide. We just wanted you to understand consequences." He turned to address the galaxy directly. "Humanity did not want this war. We came to the stars seeking friends, partners, and knowledge. The Coalition chose violence instead. But we are not conquerors. We will not rule you through fear. Instead, we offer something different." Dr. Minji stepped forward carrying a document. "The Terran Accord. A new framework for galactic civilization built on mutual respect and equality. Every species gets a voice. Every world has rights. Power is balanced. Justice is fair. This is what humanity wanted from the beginning. This is what we're prepared to enforce now." Admiral Nari added, "Any species that attacks another will face the combined response of all Accord members. Bullying stops. Mockery stops. Exploitation stops. We all rise together, or we don't rise at all." Not every species agreed immediately. Some were too proud. Some too afraid. But most understood that they had a choice: join the new order or stand against the species that had just destroyed the Coalition. Over the following weeks, 41 species signed the Terran Accord. The others were isolated, their trade cut off, their expansion halted. Most would eventually join. A few would resist for years. But the galaxy had changed forever. Warrant Officer Taman and his team found something else during their infiltration of Nexus Prime. 10 years had passed since the war ended. Unity Station, once called Nexus Prime, orbited between Earth and Mars, a symbol of the new order humanity had created. The station had been rebuilt and expanded, with sections designed by dozens of species working together. It was beautiful, functional, and represented everything the old Coalition had failed to be. Dr. Minji, now Chief Justice of the Galactic Tribunal, sat in her chambers reviewing the final case files. The war crimes trials had taken 7 years to complete. 147 coalition leaders had faced justice. Some were executed for genocide. Others received life imprisonment. A few, who had actively tried to prevent atrocities, were given lighter sentences or released with restrictions. High Chancellor Vorn had been executed 2 years ago. His last words were bitter. "We ruled for 50,000 years. You will fail in 50. Minji hoped he was wrong, but she understood his point. Building peace was harder than winning wars. Every day brought new challenges, new conflicts, new tests of whether the Terran Accord could actually work. She walked to the tribunal hall where the final case waited. This one was different. This one accused a human. Admiral Nari stood before the tribunal. She had been charged with excessive force during the war, specifically the destruction of civilian infrastructure on 3 coalition worlds. The evidence was clear. She had ordered strikes that killed millions indirectly through starvation and environmental collapse. "The defense presents its case," Minji said formally, though her heart ached. Nari had been her friend during the war. Nari's lawyer, Avraxi, surprisingly, stood up. Admiral Nari acted under extreme circumstances. Her orders prevented coalition forces from regrouping. The lives lost, while tragic, must be weighed against the human lives saved by her actions. The prosecution, led by a human lawyer, countered. "Justice cannot be selective. If we punish coalition leaders for targeting civilians, we must hold ourselves to the same standard. Otherwise, we are hypocrites." The tribunal deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they found Nari guilty, but sentenced her to service rather than imprisonment. She would spend 20 years helping rebuild the world she had damaged. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, but reflected the complexity of justice after war. Nari accepted the sentence without complaint. "I knew what I was doing," she told Minji privately. "I made my choices. I'll live with them." Captain Jinwoo had left the military shortly after the war ended. He now ran the Galactic Defense Academy, on Unity Station, training soldiers from every species. His students included humans, Vraxi, Kalith, and dozens of others who had fought on opposite sides just years ago. "Your formation is sloppy," he barked at a mixed squad during training exercises. "If an enemy attacks, you'll die confused. Work together or fail separately." A young Vraxi cadet named Koral approached him after training. "Captain Jinwoo, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead." "Is it true you killed my people during the war?" Jinwoo met the young alien's eyes directly. "Yes. I killed many Vraxi soldiers. I wish I hadn't needed to, but the war gave me no choice." Koral nodded slowly. "My father died in the war. He was a fleet commander. I used to hate all humans because of it. And now? Now I understand that everyone lost something. Hating won't bring anyone back. Learning from you might prevent future deaths." Jinwoo felt something ease in his chest. Maybe there was hope after all. Lieutenant Chae-young, now Commander Chae-young, led fighter training. She was famous across the galaxy, the pilot with 73 confirmed kills who had never been shot down. Young pilots from every species wanted to learn from her, but she rarely talked about the war. Instead, she focused on defensive tactics, on how to protect rather than destroy. A Keyleth student once asked her if humans were really as fearless as the story said. "No," Chae-young replied honestly. "We were terrified. Every battle, every sortie, I thought I would die. But being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means doing what's necessary even when you're scared." She looked at her diverse class of students. "I hope none of you ever have to fight a real war. But if you do, remember that the goal isn't to kill your enemy. It's to protect what you love. Never forget the difference." Engineer Do-hyun had destroyed all his weapons research after the war. The horrors he had created, the technology designed specifically to kill, haunted him. He now worked on terraforming technology, trying to repair worlds damaged by the war. It would take centuries to fully restore Vrax Prime, but he was trying. "Why do you help us?" a Vraxi engineer asked him while they worked on atmospheric processors. "Your weapons nearly made our species extinct." "That's exactly why," Do-hyun replied. "I created tools of destruction. The least I can do is create tools of restoration. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to balance the scales. They worked in silence for a while. Then the Vraxi said quietly, "Thank you." Supreme Commander Hyun had not adapted as well to peace. He had resigned from military command 5 years ago and returned to Earth. He lived alone in a small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, near one of the memorials for war dead. Most days he just sat and watched the waves. Dr. Minji visited him when she could. She found him on his porch reading from the casualty list as he did every night. "You can't read them all, Hyun," she said gently. "There are too many." "I have to try," he replied. "Someone has to remember their names. Someone has to acknowledge each life lost. You're punishing yourself. Maybe I should be punished." Hyun closed the file. "I ordered operations that killed billions of aliens, Minji. I destroyed worlds. I made humanity into the terror the galaxy fears. Was that the right choice?" Minji sat beside him. "You saved Earth. You saved humanity. If you hadn't fought, we would have been exterminated or enslaved. But at what cost? Young soldiers like Corral lost their parents because of decisions I made. Entire species were traumatized. The galaxy will fear and hate humanity for generations because of what we did." "The galaxy respects humanity because of what you did," Minji corrected. "They don't love us, that's true. But they listen to us. They work with us. They follow rules we established. Yes, fear is part of that. But it's not the only part." Hyun stared at the ocean. "I hope you're right." Ambassador Yuna, now Secretary General of the Terran Accord, dealt with the political realities Hyun avoided. She negotiated treaties, mediated disputes, and worked tirelessly to prevent conflicts from escalating. It was exhausting, thankless work that never ended. A crisis emerged when 2 member species, the Keyleth and the Torvan, nearly went to war over resource rights in a disputed system. Yuna spent 3 weeks shuttling between their representatives, finding compromises, and reminding them that the alternative to negotiation was destruction. "Under the old coalition, we would have simply taken what we wanted," the Keyleth representative said arrogantly. "Under the old coalition, you were defeated by a species you mocked as primitive," Yuna replied sharply. "Perhaps the old ways weren't as effective as you remember. Or perhaps you need a reminder of what happens when the Accord fails." The threat was subtle, but clear. No one wanted humanity to go to war again. The Keyleth and Torvan reached an agreement within hours, but Yuna worried. How long could peace be maintained through implied threats? Eventually, the galaxy would either truly accept the Accord's principles, or someone would challenge humanity again. What would happen then? The memorials across human space were visited by millions every year. The largest one stood on Luna, rebuilt after the war. It listed every human who died, every colony lost, every life destroyed. But it also included something unexpected, a section for alien dead. "We remember all who died in this war," the inscription read, "human and alien alike. May their sacrifice remind us that peace is always better than victory." Some humans protested the inclusion of enemy dead. Others understood that acknowledging the full cost of war was necessary for preventing the next one. A new generation was growing up, children who didn't remember the war. They attended schools where humans and aliens learned together. They played in parks on Unity Station where species barriers didn't exist. They represented the future, uncertain but hopeful. One of these children, a human boy named Junho, named after the famous sergeant, asked his teacher a simple question. Why did the war happen? The teacher, a former coalition officer who had fought against humanity, paused before answering. Because we were afraid of each other. Because we didn't try to understand. Because we thought being different meant being enemies. Will there be another war? The child asked. I hope not, the teacher replied honestly. But that depends on you and your generation. Will you remember the lessons we learned? Or will you repeat our mistakes? Unity Station received a transmission from deep space. An unknown species had detected the Accord's presence and wanted to make contact. The message was simple. We have heard stories of the humans who destroyed the coalition. We wish to meet you and join your alliance. Secretary General Yuna called an emergency session of the Accord Council. The question before them was critical. How would they respond to new species seeking membership? Would they welcome them as equals, or demand submission as the old coalition had? We have to be different, Yuna argued. We have to prove that the Accord isn't just the coalition with a human face. We welcome them with open arms and open minds.